Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and welcome to this day of love. Now, of course, this is a tabletop role playing game live podcast here. We're going to talk about the day of love. Although, to be honest, we're probably going to go further into obsession and twisted elements of the definition of love. But let's begin this with my tribute. Yes, I'm wearing a T-shirt dedicated to the Vision, who has given us one of the best lines of love in all of broadcast history, and that is, "What is grief if not love persevering?" Let's get into it. Ba-ba. All right. So today, on this day of love, we're going to talk about love being a prompt for our creative influences for our tabletop role playing experience, especially in fantasy and all of our D20 games and other role playing games thereof. And I thought that this prompt is an unlikely one. I mean, in our tabletop role playing experiences, it can be extremely awkward to have romantic interludes, and um, uh, it's awkward. Sometimes it's a little bit, shall we say, preferable to fade to black when it comes to those kind of situations. And plenty of tables out there and groups basically don't have romance and this kind of love in time in our role playing experiences, which is perfectly fine. But I think this is more of a way for us to draw some kind of motivations for our NPCs and for our adversaries, I think, as well, because when love in the classic sense, in the positive sense, is twisted, it can get kind of ugly. And if you allow me to show you allow me to uh, share the thumbnail, there's also a little bit of a mischievous, fey kind uh, of a trait connected to love, especially when you we talk about like the classic cherub and imagery. Let's see if I put this up here. Yeah, we think about this cherub imagery. There's like a playful, dark, and a little bit of a twisted, like celestial or fey origin in many ways for our pop culture when it comes to love. And yeah, I mean, there's like, yeah, Vince is like, yeah, the bro love and stuff. Yeah, we're going to get into that as well. And also, yeah, the day of stalking. Yeah, we're going to get into some not so kind traits associated with this. And of course, throughout all of history, there have been poets and historians and philosophers that have tried to define what is love, and for many people, they feel that it's not really love if there are negative traits attached to it. It's something else. um, it's more, again, trying to think of something other than using the word obsession. It is portraying imagery in our heads that other people that are the subject to our desires don't fit into. It's more of a internal illusion of sorts. And so, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And Vince says, as a Christian, this is just so far away from anything angel in the Bible. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The classic cherub like imagery of the babe child shooting arrows into the heart of the individual that makes them fall in love that's that's not biblical. That's just something that we've attached to. Yeah. Vince is like, I hate this cherub baby so much. I know, because it's unfortunately people attach maybe imagery and meanings to things that don't have anything to do with one or the other. Yeah, that's why we got demon cherubs that eat your face off. Yeah. Uh, so the reason why I chose this imagery is because it is very iconic, and also using a prompt, I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't really this is there's nothing angelic about this. This is like dangerous Fey territory here, and I like it. I've never heard that. So, do you know the three concepts of eros? I'm going to pronounce that because I've heard it pronounced agape, but it's agape and philia. No, I do not know. Please give us. Please teach us. So, I think as for adversaries and antagonists in our games, sometimes it can be a little fun to have some NPCs and whatnot have a uncomfortably um, uncomfortable attraction to one or more of the player characters. Whether it is whether, like the other day we were talking about having a crowd of people who just love the player characters and what they do, they idolize them and start following the PCs around. And then, unfortunately, the PCs can't hide in the shadows because they're being followed by people who want their autographs and they want to be around them and want to talk to them because they idolize them so much. Heck, maybe even dressing like the player characters and and such, much like fans of artists and musicians and actors that try to emulate them. But maybe there's even something deeper where an NPC has it has a strange obsession with one or more of the NPCs, wanting to gain their favor and gain their attraction, uh, uh, writing them letters, dropping off small trinkets to them, being trying to predict what the player characters want, and then going overboard and trying to gift them things and offer them little favors that might be a little bit uncomfortable, where the player characters are like, please stay away from me, and trying to let these people down. And it could disrupt the lives of others, especially if those individuals are family members of rich merchants, powerful factions, or even nobility. And the nobles are like, no, we had an arranged marriage with our NPCs here. You weren't supposed to be part of this. And that's the basis of many a romantic comedy, right? Where our protagonist comes into the fold and basically is a monkey wrench. They disrupt all of the pre-planned um, desires and motivations, and suddenly this new person shows up, and then there's an unlikely attraction between two people from across the tracks and whatnot. But I would dare say that there can be some danger if you have a powerful adversary that happens to want to bring the player characters into their fold, and the player characters are completely against it. Hags, Medusa, some of your classics, succubus, some of your classically female gendered beings in mythology are ones where they can do some damage to a lot of people, and also make it problematic when one or more of the player characters are like, oh no, I'm not going to hurt you. As a matter of fact, I would like to put you in my gilded cage because I love you so much, right? I want to keep you. I want to hug you and squeeze you. Just like, thanks, Medusa, but could you please keep the cloak over your face? Because this isn't going to work out too long. Vince is okay. Going back to Vince's comment about the three kinds of love in ancient Greece, eros, which I do have some familiarity with. Vince's eros is bodily or sexual love. Okay, um, philia is intellectual or love between friends, and agape or agape, also called true love, is spiritual love between lovers or family. And I do remember that there is and even to this day, within especially people who have gone through traumatic experiences and a war, military personnel go through these same experiences, or actually epitomized by this, that there is a battlefield entangled love between people who go through horrific events such as war, and there's like a brotherly love, and it is completely unsexual, but it's like both of us have gone through this experience, this bond that cannot be broken. And in many ways it is explained how military personnel have a bond that can sometimes not be broken, and it's difficult for families at home to understand why, you know, service people who serve in the military want to go back, even though they know they're leaving their loved ones behind back in the homestead, and it's because of their absolute brotherly love, that their lives are no more important or even less important than the people that are around them, that they love them so much. And so that military kind of crucible of love could be a thing where the player characters maybe they stop a big bad evil, and they make strange bedfellows with maybe another air quotes evil enemy, and that enemy is like, oh, no, 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 those player characters will never touch them because they're ours, even though the evil enemies keep doing their evil things, and the player characters are like, we're actually buddies, but we prefer you not to, we don't want you ravaging villagers anymore. You're like, hey, yeah, but I thought we loved each other. We're there. Yeah, and Vince is, of course, this is not a perfect description, but it's as perfect a description as we need for our discussion. So you're perfectly fine. All right, so the squad says, picture this: on the day of devils, they make everybody have uh, bacchanalian orgies and stuff. And the day after that, they make you fall in love with everybody you were just having an orgy with. I like that. I like that idea. Like all of a sudden, there are individuals that you're just like, it's the classic cartoon eyes with the hearts, in the eyes. And that would be pretty hilarious. Like the PC's like blink, 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 blink. Oh no! And of course, you have a desire not to harm them. In many ways, the cantrip, I believe, is a cantrip, the friends spell, kind of brings this about, where you can't ask the person. The side note: the friend spells like a very minor charm, and that person becomes your friend. They want to do things and act in your behalf, but you can never ask them to do something that goes against their own moral and ethical code, including murder, killing, right? Themselves or others. And so the when you have individuals who maybe take things a little too far, they're a little bit too much on your side, it would be pretty interesting for some adversaries to rob and steal and harm and have violence and kidnap and such, to bring little gifts to the player characters, and they're like, and they drop a chest of gold in front of the player characters, this is for you, and the PCs are like, this is awesome, except where'd you get this from, and why is there blood dripping from a hemp sack? And they're like, oh, no, no, we beheaded, there was another person who wanted your charm, so I beheaded that person so you would only be for me. Right? And then it's like, maybe that's not love at all. Vince says, knowing that other languages have different words for love, it is so weird that English and German only have one word for love that you can use for food and your spouse. That's pretty hilarious. Yes, because unfortunately, our definition is like it's like a gumbo. It's just dumping more things into the pot and going, oh yeah, that's love too, as opposed to going like, why don't we? Because our language, especially the English language, is made of so many other words. Why don't we use those other words? But you know, sometimes love is like the thick lard that floats on the surface of the 9 days old pot of stew, and sometimes you have to use like a ladle to get down to the bottom to find the real good stuff, because maybe the nasty stuff just floats to the top. It's often classified as love. Yeah, Vin says eros is often used for sexual things, and philia is often a combined word like for. Oh yes, is a prefix for like philosophy, like love for truth, or Philadelphia, brotherly love. Yep, the word. Yeah, and that's exactly. I'm from Philadelphia, and yes, it is the city of brotherly love, and is often shown. Although moving around some of the heavy urban areas and seeing like street fights and gunfights and stuff, it's like maybe that's not exactly brotherly love. Also, Phila is also a prefix for other words that are, you know, you know, dangerous and lethal and harmful love of children and dead bodies and things like that. Yeah. Vince goes on to say, if you look at it from this perspective, love really is any kind of bond you have for things you care for, which makes it much more interesting to use in TTRPGs. You could play with the bonds between PCs or companions and concepts they care for. My undisputed, if I had a mechanic I could steal from, and this actually has been stolen for other role playing games. There's a game called Wraith the Oblivion, and the first edition, the White Wolf game. The Wraith version has been brought into the second edition, and now I believe there's a V20 version of it 20 years later. But in Wraith the Oblivion, there is a concept of fetters. And so in Wraith the Oblivion, you play a wraith, a ghost. Every player character has died, but they have never moved on. You're in between the living and the dead worlds. And as you move around in the Shadowlands and such, your character has a power that is fueled by pathos. It is your feelings. And in order to use these points, you gain them from your fetters. And a fetter is a person, place, or thing, and sometimes an ideal, but preferably a person, place, or thing you have an attachment to, an emotional attachment to. And so you can pick um, a family home, the location of a car wreck where your character was killed. It could be a wedding ring. It could be a lover's bridge. It could be a coroner's office. Right? You have these persons, places, things, a book, a photograph, all these kind of things, and then you attach an emotion to it. And your character, now mind you, you don't have to role play your attachment to these things, but if you want to use your special ghost like powers to possess people or move light switches or make frogs fall out of the sky or the walls bleed, you have to use your pathos to fuel those powers. And in order to get them back, you return to your fetters to heal yourself and to gain this pathos. And I love the idea of, I've always thought it would be a great idea to have like, and using D20 system, you have hit points, and your basic bodily hit points would just be your constitution score. So that score would be from 3 to 18, right? It would probably range from 8 to like 8 to 16 in the beginning, and maybe your constitution score would modulate or whatever, usually going up through time, but that would be your body. The rest of your hit points would be this ephemeral drive to be adventurous, right? If you've got 50 hit points but your con is 10, that means you've got 40 points of this luck, this drive, this love you have for other things. In order to get those points back, you would have to divide them between persons, places, and things that drive your character to do what they do. So maybe you have you have a betrothed, or a sibling, or a king, queen, a noble, or an ideal that you attach to, and you must interact with that thing because the one you're betrothed to equals 15 points. And then your sibling, which you have a love-hate relationship with, you're always like butting heads, even though when you're separated from them, you want to meet them again because you love them so much. But then when you're actually in the same room, it's like oil and water, you just don't mix. And they're worth 25 points, right? Or something like that. So sorry, little breaking game design thing that I think you could mechanically make something emotional or yes, attach mechanics to an emotional connection player characters have. Blades in the Dark does this with vices. Mike says, on a more grounded note, what kind of items, monsters, or environments should we expect on the Day of Love? I think you, for me, I think taking some of our classic monsters that tend to be more aggressive and pulling them into more of an urban social environment. I love using Medusas and hags and silver dragon. Like the shape changers really can flow into this as well. But there might be monsters that aren't monsters in the classic sense. For example, um, uh, ethereal monsters like ghosts, banshees, shadows. They make great storytelling elements because a lot of times they have an unfinished life. Maybe they have an unfinished connection with love, and they can possess people. And yes, we can consider it a violation when something possesses another human being's body to do something. But maybe the humans that get possessed by them have this a feeling of euphoria instead of horror, and want to complete the quests of the people that are who are restless dead. They're like, they fell in love with this other person. We've got to get them back together. And what a great mission for player characters. Instead of murder killing something, it's like the ghost really wants um, to find to reconnect with their loved one. Maybe their loved one also passed away, or maybe their loved one is still alive, and they want to reconnect with them just to let them know because they were separated by war, but they want to get back home. And the player characters are like are there like, we're going to make sure this loved one gets their diary back to their hand or something because they were never able to consummate their relationship in some sort of way. There may be also monsters that really want to shape the lives of other people. Using the cherubic imagery right here. Maybe they're fey creatures that are going around and doing the classic, naked or half naked cherubic bodies floating around, and the fey creatures are making people fall for each other that socially they shouldn't really be, and having a desire to be with each other, and all the people around are like, oh no, they're in the grips of this thing on the Day of Love, right? And we've got to stop them before they go off and prance off to, making two enemies fall for each other and have a desire for each other. Having, again, people from across the tracks, someone from a very low status combined with a person from a very high status. On the Day of Love, maybe there are these fey beings that are around, and if people give special gifts to these winged creatures, maybe they are able to grant a desire or a wish, a trinket of some sort that makes another person fall for them, that normally wouldn't give them any kind of attention or something. Now, this could be a positive thing where there are two people who are star-crossed lovers, and they can't get together because of danger, war, battle, crime, tradition, and the player characters are here to break that barrier and get the two or more together. And of course, today, I'm going to get in your comments. I apologize, guys. Today, our definition of relationships is becoming far more fluid. I mean, we've got what are some, but not just. I'm not just referring to gender fluidity, which um, there is no shame in the game on this channel. All pronies are accepted here, but our relationships with groups, like having a relationship with three or more people in various levels of connection is a thing. What are it called? Like polycules or thruples and things like that. Like there might be different types of those relationships. And again, if we go back to relationships in war, what a great way for like an ogre wants to reconnect with um, a hobgoblin that was in a great battle, and that hobgoblin's life was saved by a paladin, and the paladin remembers that they were dragged from literally falling into the pits of hell by this hobgoblin who's like, yeah, I was evil, but I don't want hell to reign on earth, right? So we're going to work together. And then they have this, I mean, and there's no sexual relationship, but it's like they have this connection, like, yeah, we both went through it and we both beat back the hordes of devils or demons or something and whatnot. And it's like, when I see you again, we'll see what's up. And maybe they left as enemies, but they're like, I don't really hate this person anymore, right? So anyway, back to your comments. Um, Vince says, as much as I despise John Wick, the writer, oh yeah, yes, he, but he made one of the most interesting games I know, House of the Blooded, and in this, being in love is actually a huge boost to your role as long as it involves your lover or what they care for. I get it. It's more of a cat and mouse game, like in classic literature, which can be very cool, double-edged sword, because the person you love does not always have your best interest in mind, but you have a mechanical incentive to do it anyway, which is great to simulate the rush of being in love. There is the game Invisible Sun has traits you can pick that only activate with your relationship with other player characters. And it gives you a boost. And one of those is having love. And you could have an unrequited love. Like one player character could be in love with another player character, but that other character could have a rivalry with you. And you have a bonus or benefit or something, like maybe you have extra movement to move towards that person, or you're able, let's use classic Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like, hey, I carry a shield. It gives me +2 AC, but I can also give +2 AC to the person that I love as long as I'm within 5 feet of them, right? And that would be attaching, like having a numeric value of something or a benefit or like inspiration or special spell or magical effect or something, and then having it attached because you have a web of intersection with another player character or something like that would be very cool. That's very awesome. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think it would be super fun to have the Day of Love be literal, as in that monsters become pacified for that day and you cannot fight at all, and everyone is willing to talk or care for each other. Um, I, I had thought about I didn't know if this would blend in. I was going to say, call it the Day of Peace or something, where literally the player characters, like no monsters can fight any at all. It's just all completely social interactions, even if people are, throwing threats across the table or something like that. But it would be kind of cool to see, like, what would these monsters be like if they're just peaceful and actually caring, right? Maybe the player characters get to see a different side of the orc horde because they aren't in battle, but they get to see what they're like in their social environment in which they show care and love for someone else. It's the classic Keep on the Borderlands module where the player characters are supposed to go into the caves of chaos and murder kill everything, and then they come upon they realize that, oh, they have women and children in here. Some of them are pregnant. What are we supposed to do? And it was the first time a conundrum was put into the game without any mechanical thing. It was just a feature in the caves, and it was the first time that player characters are up against, like, oh, wait a minute, uh, they're supposed to be evil because the game says so, or actually it was called chaotic. It was lawful, neutral, or chaotic. But then on the other hand, it's like, aren't we the evil ones? And it came up that way. Yep. Vince says that would open up some really cool opportunity for the PCs to maybe go into a dungeon while knowing the monsters won't harm them, but they have to finish the dungeon before the day is over. Now that would be really cool too, right? Like maybe on this Day of Love, those dangerous monsters are able to come into the civilized lands, knowing that for at least this day, they know there won't be any harm. But why are they here? What do they desire? And maybe fulfilling that desire isn't so bad at all, right? Maybe the ogre that keeps harming the the people in the outskirts. Maybe all the ogre really wanted was to have a couple of drinking buddies, hear some music, and barbecue a couple of pigs or something for a pig roast. But they didn't know that until the day of love came about, and then the people were just like, "Oh, that's all you wanted? Like, we don't have to have violence for this. Come on down. We'll have a roast or something." And the ogre's like, "I didn't know," because maybe the ogre doesn't realize it's a day of love and doesn't realize that he or she is like, "Oh, I guess I could talk this out. I didn't realize that." Yeah, John Wick, the writer. Yeah, just to add to the Houses of the Blooded from John Wick, the RPG writer. The game itself is terribly balanced and more of a mix of interesting ideas. I tried playing and GMing it, and it sucks at being a game. But listen, having some great concepts that people have come across. I brought up Wraith the Oblivion. Sometimes taking those concepts and stretching them a bit, like pulling on the threads, it's kind of cool. TA says, you looked at love being a portion of necessary possession spell to have someone that has died inhabit and control the body of someone that loved them. Well, maybe like a ghost that comes back to um, an NPC could have a loved one that became a spirit, and then that spirit bonds with that humanoid, and they have a love for each other, and then that ghost, the NPC is just like a zero level NPC, but the ghost is doing things for their loved one and could be driving people mad and possessing people and draining their lives and stuff because they're protecting this one person. And the loved one is like, "I don't like the fact that my passed away, my ghostial wraith like loved one is doing these things, but I don't care. They love me and they're doing it because they love me. So, what do I, I'm getting a lot out of this, right?" And the player characters might have to excise this ghost or banshee or whatever the case may be. And the NPC might be looking at it like, "I'm going to stop you from doing that. This is my loved one." Now you can get pretty morally and ethically, you can get a little bit deep into it, especially if it's like, um, other than just an adult loved one, if it's a lost child or an ancestor or something of that nature, it can get a little bit a little bit dangerous or something. Also, you have people who, unfortunately, in our day and age, will end their own lives to reunite with their loved ones who've crossed to the other side. Of course, this is some adult stuff. You gotta talk about this as session zero, especially if you have a player who might currently be going through something like this, either with desires of themselves or a loved one that has done or considered ending their own lives. But in fantasy gaming, we know that in many fantasy games, there is another world, and the player characters might be here to try to stop that from happening, or guide someone to the other side to reunite with. There I mean, there's some missions here where, what is it, mediums talking to the dead, where someone wants to commune with a loved one from another side or something. Also, werewolves, vampires, shape changers, and things like that. Maybe someone falls for one of these other monsters, and that monster has an healthy or unhealthy relationship with just a mundane. Vampire. We've seen vampire stories do this all the time. Friendly interactions with monsters should be done more often, especially with gelatinous cubes. Yeah, but you only get to hug them once. So it's let the gelatinous cube hug you completely today. Yeah, hug your local ooze. Why all the hate? Oh man, yeah. Little bit of an obsession with oozes, just a little bit. Hey, listen, I'm not offending oozes. We're including molds and gelatin and, and fluids and viscosity. We're all invited too. Yeah, yeah. Not a half ogre in love with a half fairy. Why not? Why the hell not? You know, the 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 werewolf that protects their loved one, even in the grips of complete violence, might be a way for the player characters to go. We we aren't powerful enough to stop the werewolf, but that guy over there is the one person that lady who turns into a werewolf will never harm. We need to bring him along to stop this thing from happening, right? Um, Yesterday we talked about the Day of Devils. Maybe there's a devil that has crossed from the, from the pits of the nine hells that has an unhealthy desire to protect a mortal being or something. I know I'm talking about mortals and whatnot, but maybe the lich and the vampire couple that have cursed themselves and each other to go down these dark paths because they will forever be entangled or something. The mummy that was encased because they realized that this is the way for them to cross over using a ritual because their loved one is now a banshee or something. Mike says, I feel like shipping two NPCs together. Yeah, like getting an acceptable date for a werewolf in town and seeing them married later would be a quest reward that would stay with me longer than any gold pile. Yeah, I mean, why not? Maybe the key to stopping the werewolf attacks is to get them hitched up with somebody who's able to calm them down. The undeveloped love story between the Hulk and I was about to say Scarlet Witch and Black Widow, where the Hulk is bestial and Black Widow is like, calm down and rubs his hand and he turns back, whatever. Yeah, why wouldn't there be, or why couldn't you have a big bad that is um, who is extremely powerful numerically against the player characters, but they have this key that allows them to like um when they go into the vampire lord's keep, they see paintings of this loved one that they have, and they see jewelry that they want to give to this person, and they beseech the player characters, please give them this painting and whatnot. Being very kind and gentle and stuff, and the PCs are like, that's kind of weird. Um, the squad says, just thinking of the kinds of monsters that would be most challenging to communicate. Orcs and goblins would be too easy. Yeah, monsters that can't communicate or have to use third parties or something. Giant spiders reminds me of Children of Time again. Ooh. Thomas Anderson says the lifespan would be a giant barrier for one thing, let alone methods of communication with shifting and sense long over periods of time versus human speech. No, absolutely. Long-lived elves would kind of cycle through this love and then unrequited love, and then love is broken and things like that, or humans that fall for elves, and the elves know that they live long and they don't want to have anything to do with you because you'll be dead in the span that it takes one of our kids just to reach adulthood or something like that. Yeah, a language crossing language barriers could be a problem. um, Heck, even beings from the outer planes, from time and space and things like that, would be kind of interesting as well. And TA says, oh, no, there's a difference between appreciation and love. Depending on your definition, absolutely. Absolutely. And that conflict is our sweet spot, right? Conflict is where drama comes from. That's where challenges come from. Our that's where our stories come from. And the classic vampire that's always attracted to the person who reminds them of their lost love, that's where the drama comes in, because you always have a protagonist that's like, just because I look like that person doesn't mean I want to be involved in your life. And then the love turns to obsession and they want to kidnap them and lock them away or something like that. TA says, I've been on a chemical train that indicates that plants are not responsible for oxygen production either, just starving off it, returning to original state of lost off world. I'm not understanding what that means. But the actual oxygen is coming from a sort of chemical reaction to specific rock formations that bubble up from between tectonic plates. Ooh, is that a difference in science now? Hmm. Yeah, I'm with Vince where he says I think John Wick, the writer, again is terrible at mechanics, but has tons of cool ideas. This is why I read some of his stuff. Most of the stuff I read is for ideas anyway. Oh yeah. I'm the same way. There's games I own because I love the ideas in it, but I think sometimes the mechanics might be like overwrought or undercooked and such. And even Tasune mentions like give your local bearded devil a haircut today because they want to look good for they're going on a date. And I shaved myself maybe a little too low because I'm a bit baby faced, but whatever. Vince says love could also be corrupting. What about someone being in love with a vampire or succubus? Yeah, I played in a game where it was a player character that was like, hell yeah, I'm in love with a succubus. And then we all like looked at each other like, okay, let's go with it. And that succubus became a little bit too obsessed with the player character and was going around doing things for that player character. Like, I'm going to, you need to get through the gates and charm that guard. I'll do that for you. And then the player character got fake jealous because the succubus couldn't control her desires for other people because that was like in her nature. And he's like, I just want you for me. And the succubus, I want to be for you too, but I have these other desires and stuff. And it was, and then they had to say goodbye to each other. And then the succubus went away and the character came back when we were doing like an Outer Planes adventure. And the succubus was like, oh, there you go. And they met each other and stuff. And we were just like sitting back like, this is so hilarious. But it was fun too. It was very fun. Braid of mind flayer's face tentacles. Someone's into someone has a desire for like uh, mani petties for monsters. I think that although on a day of love, why not, right? Got to show some self love too. Yeah, cordyceps and werewolves. What the heck? I guess if Tesla can fall in love with a pigeon and supposedly it loved him, then anything is possible. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, Shice. Yeah, succubus got mad game though. Yeah, I don't know. I think if there was a real succubus, you might change your values might change quite a bit. If you get into that. Although, what the movie is called, Her, where a gentleman falls in love with his operating system in his OS, and come to find out that the OS was having similarly intense relationships, fell in love with hundreds of other people, and then had even further entanglements with great friendships with thousands of other people, and he couldn't handle it. But it's just like, well, I mean, different beings have different relationships with, if you're a long-lived immortal, much like what's the television show on Amazon, Invincible. Think, Mark, think. I love your mom like a pet. You might get a little bit of that too. Now TA brings up a great story element. Says I thought that was the downfall of the succubus or incubus, of them being in love with someone, causing them to lose all their powers. I would delete that question mark, because maybe there are some powerful entities out there that falling falling truly in love with someone or something or whatever, ideal or people or whatever, is the limitation that causes their downfall, that the player characters might pull on. Like, for example, sorry, a when people commit evil acts in fantasy, they often go to the lower planes, right? They go into the abyss and the hells and pandemonium and limbo and these places, and their souls are ravaged and they twist and turn, but maybe they still have a connection back to home, their prime material plane, to people that they love. Maybe the way to defeat, air quotes, defeat the evil devil is to have it remember the love it had for its family. And when that devil reconnects with them, even from a distance, their power is reduced or even almost nil. And then they realize, like, oh, wait a minute, we don't have to murder kill the devil. We can just protect their loved ones and the devil will go away. And the devil's like, you got me there, right? It's fine. If you protect my loved ones, I'll stay away from this world and the next, because I could never come back to them, because I would corrupt them the way I was such a corrupt person in my mortal life or something thousands of years ago, or whatever, right? It could be something like that. A ghost that leaves, a ghost that leaves people alone because the ghost is trying to protect their family, and the ghost is all emotion and ravaging people, and the PCs go, no, 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 hold on. We understand now. We get what you're trying to do. we'll be your we'll be your conduit. My DeSantis says, well, I don't agree with Thomas Hobbes' overall ideas. I did find his definition of love interesting. If lust is to desire what you don't have, then love is to appreciate what you do have. Yeah, and again, when we started, I'm not giving a definition of what love is, because I think my definition of love being gumbo, where it's just we just happen to keep pouring things into it, good and bad, and putting it in a big soup, scooping something out, and every time we scoop something out, there's something different in it, and each of us has a different taste in our mouth of what love is, our definition of it, what it isn't, and such. And I absolutely agree with that. Vince says Day of Companions would fit into this concept as well, where on this day you pronounce your devotion, not just a duty, but a true devotion to others in your clan or group or faction. Love could be going back home. Player characters, the hoboism of being murder hobos is that um, the hoboism, they don't have a life, they don't have lives, they always happen to be orphans because their families and community were all murder killed by something in their background, and that's why I'm a first level character adventuring. But having family and friends, and the wizard, how often does the wizard go back to their wizard school and reconnect with their classmates, or the young gnome that they looked across the classroom at and were never able to reconnect with, but then they come back again and come to find out that that gnome was really a doppelganger, and the doppelganger still had a desire to be with the PC, but the doppelganger has been these other people following that person's life, and but you can get complicated with it and get really twisted, but you can also have some fun as well. Shai says, cordyceps and werewolves would be ideal, or cordyceps and mind flayers. Imagine getting zombified by a mushroom eating your brain if you're already a brain-eating zombifier. Isn't that like a enigma wrapped in a mystery? It's like, it's, it's the idea of, like, it's not just a dragon, it's an undead dragon. Vince, I'm with you. I love the movie Her. It's one of my unsung hero movies. I love it. It that movie hits me on the movie Her hits me on so many levels, because it's a high tech. I love. I'm a pro technology person, even though I know it disrupts our society, but I'm also a pro. I fall positive than negative, and lots of technologies are very disruptive in our culture and society and things like that. But I always feel like there's something excellent on the outside of that. Inception. Ooh, Inception has the movie Inception has a twist on the love angle, because Cobb, the main character in Inception, spoiler alert for the movie Inception, our main protagonist, Cobb, has Maul, with Maul being, a word for bad things happening. His ex-wife, his wife that committed suicide, is following him because of his guilt, because he incepted her to try to get her to leave the dream realm so that she come back to the real world, but then she didn't believe one another, and then he caused her death and things like that. So that was a side plot that had a huge effect in the movie. So that may be a thing too. Maybe the classic wizard that always causes the problems was trying to help a situation. There's a classic super villain known as thanks, Vince. Vince is like, yeah, I think we're very much alike, DVD. Always a pleasure to interact with you. Yeah, we're so much on the same level. But there's a classic villain whose entire plot is based around love, and that is Mr. Freeze. There's a DC super villain named Mr. Freeze, and he's always, for some reason, stealing diamonds because his wife had a debilitating disease, a terminal disease, and he had been trying to find a cure for her. So he freezes her, and he goes around stealing stuff and causing problems and will do anything to protect her. And he becomes a very sympathetic Batman villain because he's trying to save her life. Now, is he murder killing other people? Yes. Is he stealing other people's stuff? Yes. Is he trying to kill Batman? Yes. But the classic story was he was trying to save his loved one's life. And that is a great motivation for plenty of monsters. A Medusa that turned her loved one into stone and is trying to find a spell, a scroll, a wizard, a thing to stop her affliction because she wants to get her loved one back to human. What a great motivation for that Medusa to go around trying to capture people. And it's just like, you're no good to me, Stone. You're no good to me, Stone. I'm looking for a wizard who could turn some, who was renowned for turning someone back from stone into a living creature again or something. And then she starts getting the agents that are loyal to her, like an ogre with a pet displacer beast and a couple of hobgoblin soldiers. Anyway, yes. For those who know, you'll know. Mike Mayer says, I like to see an inverted succubus instead of corrupting love for devil power. Some sort of benevolent restoring love for deific boons. This could be a magic item or a trinket. Yeah, absolutely. And you could reskin, reflavor, reuse. Like, what was a succubus or an incubus before they fell? Maybe they were angelic. They're in a mythological, biblical sense. Angels fell and they become the demons and devils. So in fantasy, what's the angelic counterpart to them? Maybe the point of a succubus incubus combination is that they are trying to be loving and it always turns bad. They really do want to love people, but it just doesn't work out well. Yeah, so basically a hellish Cupid, yep, or a matchmaker. Yeah, a little matchmaking could be. I brought up the idea of like fey creatures. Why won't that show? Really? There we go. The idea of fey creatures causing people to fall in love would be kind of fun. And again, this is a very adult thing. If your player group is one in which you have a desire to explore a connection with a person or more than one person in your group, that is normally not explored and your group is okay with it, the day of love could be a way to like finagle that in there. With my gaming group, we kind of did that. There was a young lady that was in our group, and she felt safe in our gaming group to want to explore romantic entanglements with us dudes because we were all nerds, but we were all also respectful, and she felt like she could be open and stuff like that. And she decided this wasn't a day of kind of thing, but we were playing a game where where she's like, she felt comfortable doing that, and we're like, yeah, sure, you're fine, whatever. We're not going to take it seriously. We're all friends here, and it worked out really. It was fun. It was fun because we got to play like teenage drama before teenage drama was a real thing in role playing games. Yeah. Anderson says, would be interesting where you have a demon that plays matchmaker specifically to cause issues and drama rather than peace. And the conflict causes promotion of the people, thus ultimately the really good guy and only appearing to be the bad guy. I like the idea of like hypnotic, fake creatures, demons, devils, causing people to come together. And on the surface, it just seems pretty innocuous. Players are like, why wouldn't they get together? And, we don't have any judgments. Yeah, like Mike Mayer says, essentially, yeah. This has happened plenty of times. Yeah, that sailor's quick fling on shore leave has evolved into a passionate and healthy relationship. Yep. How many World War II and other wars soldiers got married like within days? Met someone. We're meant to be together. I'm going off to war, and when I come back, we're gonna have a relationship and be together for 47 freaking years. That was maybe not so much today, but that's a real thing. You know, why couldn't or wouldn't there be? What if the player characters leave off to air quotes adventure in war, and they come back and their loved ones have changed dramatically over time, pining for them as they've left. I imagine that would anger a ship captain if his sailors never wanted to return to sea. Yeah, yeah. Yep. Day of Comrades sees the meaning of dice rolling. Hells yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Sorry guys, I'm trying to keep up with what you guys have to say. I might have to institute the DBJ rule, like you have to put DBJ in front of your comment or something like that. But yeah. Ooh, Vince says could be interesting. Having more combo moves and spells that need connection between PCs. That's a great thing. Like what if you could share your player character's capabilities, or at least mix them together because of your connection with someone else? So the shield spell, if I'm not mistaken, the shield spell is a personal spell, right? It's I cast shield spell, I protect myself. But what if you have the ability to share it with someone else simply because they are part of your love web connection? That might be kind of good. Yep. Yeah, some Philos between us. Yeah, 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 yeah. Why the hell not, right? My character uh, has no limitations in sending a telepathic connection with this other loved one of mine or something like that. That'd be kind of cool. Vince says that's a weird there's a weird trend with cold-based characters in comics. They are often about love. I wonder if it's the dichotomy between having a cold heart and warm spirit kind of thing. Like the coldness is brutal and cold and like emotionless, and adding in a good dollop of love and care makes them sympathetic, as opposed to the opposite, which would be like characters based around fire tend to be wild and dangerous and destructive, and something like that. Yeah, I don't know. That is weird, or it's just thievery. The big two, Marvel and DC, have stolen ideas from each other since time immemorial. So that's not a new thing, right? There's Green Arrow, and then there's Hawkeye. There's Superman, and then there's Sentry, or actually before that it was I'll just say Hyperion. Yep. Um, it could be that the Medusa has a problem of loving everyone, so she's trying to preserve them so they won't ever die by turning them to stone. Dude, erase the question mark on that. You're absolutely right. Yeah, why not? Why not? Why wouldn't there be, instead of monsters and other intelligent creatures killing the PCs, they could just be wanting to like No, I care for you too much, and I want to protect you. Put you in my I want to put you on a shelf. I want to preserve you forever, until I can find a way for us to be together eternally. And then the player characters are captured and taken away or something like that. I don't remember. How about that succubus in Planescape Torment? Fall from Grace was her name. Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, uh, I don't know. Yes, are we technically talking about love in the positive sense? Not really, not really, but in the sense of using these as a mechanism for storytelling, I don't see a problem with this at all. And of course, if we go back to which I didn't delve into the Fey part of it, Fey creatures just throwing monkey wrenches into people's lives. You know, on this particular day, the players are all like stuck with arrows that have them have an unhealthy desire to want to be around and protect someone else, or vice versa, and the players are like, oh, don't the day of. uh, mm-mm-mm. On that Cupid demon, the general idea is that there is an ulterior motive that seems nefarious, yeah, to match, to matchmaking, but ultimately it's an act of good to future proofing to be realized by anyone. Like, yeah, maybe, maybe they're really trying to go around doing something bad, but really something good came out of it. You know, the elven prince that falls for the hobgoblin, hell, the elven prince that falls for the hobgoblin king, and it's like the two would never meet across, socially and economically and militarily and politically. This should not work at all. And they both meet across the battlefield, and they throw down their weapons, and they're just like, I don't know what this is, but we got to explore this. And the hobgoblin is like, this, thinking like this is breaking all the rules or something. And then all the soldiers, everybody's just like, what the hell's going on here? And the hobgoblins are like, well, I guess we're supposed to follow the leader. I don't know. And then all of a sudden there's this huge peace between the two. And then, and it becomes this thing where the elves are like wearing masks that look like hobgoblins or something. And the hobgoblins are wearing like filigree capes that are made by the elves. And the PCs are like, what the hell happened here? What? I've never seen this kind of combination before. Yeah, it's been a long time when because Shice brings up DJ while you're on the subject of exploration at the gaming table. Does anybody remember Andrew's classic mature topics video? No, I don't. It's been a long time. I've done some mature topics videos before. My channel's not the biggest thing in the world. Most people don't really tune in for the kind of discussions we have, but whatever. I'm going to have to get out of here pretty soon, in a couple of minutes. Yeah, he had this idea of appealing to women's hidden desires to have two guys chasing them as a way to get more women into gaming. It's all about, well, not just women. It's all the pronies that exist everywhere. It's just having. I know people make fun of like it's woke culture and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, what is culture? The gaming community used to be the place where we embraced all the leftovers, right? All the geeks, all the castaways, all the goths, all the emos, it's like if you were ever cast away and aside and you're by yourself, the gaming community was a place like, come on, no, you sit with us, come on, have lunch with us. Today people were just like, I can't believe they're pushing it down my throat. I'm going like, maybe you're just a little bit of a pansy ass. I'm too much of a man to be threatened by other people's desires to express themselves in a world in which they can do so easily, right? And safely and comfortably. Yeah, I'm far too secure in my own self to be worried about other people's selves, and so I embrace it all. Yeah, the mention of a villain causing trouble through love makes me want to throw some players into the plot of A Midsummer's Night Dream. Yes, Absolutely. You know, the doppelganger that's supposed to backstab the party and then ends up falling in love. I side note, I ran a story. Okay. The adventure started out with the player characters um being hired by a king who had a daughter. That daughter um had a child because the daughter was betrothed to this gentleman who was actually a doppelganger, and then the child was born, and everyone knew that you kill doppelgangers on sight, and the population wanted to kill his daughter and then kill the prince who really was hidden but was there to infiltrate the nobility but fell in love and had the daughter had the child, and the king was like, save my grandchild, and so the PCs had to take the child and save the grandchild and run. They actually had to drink a potion of diminution, anyway, shrinking potion, and they had to go through sewer systems. Anyway, well, but that was the start of it, and so yeah, you could absolutely have a story where the 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 intention was for two people or two or more people to be enemies, but then come to find out, like, no, maybe we should be together. Um, Strange bedfellows, right? In the Expanse, they had um, spacecraft crew that were in a fully formed sexual relationships with each other despite gender and matching and things like that. So you could have 5, 6, 7 crew members and they're all together because they live on a ship. And it could be that maybe a group of strange bedfellows are like, they have to survive together. And then at the end of the strange bedfellows, they just became attached to each other in more ways than one. And when they see each other after a long time, it's like, yeah, get together. If I'm not mistaken, I believe in ancient Greece or Roman or something, a lot of the soldiers had those kind of relationships. That was not unheard of. That they weren't defined as classically gay, but they had sexual relationships with each other as troops, but not being attracted to other men and stuff like that. So that was probably a common thing as well. So yeah, same thing. I mean, maybe it's a big cultural thing. What's sorry, uh, Elf Quest. Elf Quest. Um, in let's see, let's turn this off. In Elf Quest, they had. There we go. Let's put this out here. Bu- 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 in Elf Quest, they had a when they just before they went to war, they would have these large orgies, um, and it was a way for them to um, it was the physical representation of putting aside of of engaging in desires that people had for each other and putting aside rivalries that they had by engaging in these orgies, because they knew they might die in an upcoming war, a very dangerous mission or something like that. I absolutely positively, if you don't know what ElfQuest is, I absolutely positively ask you to please look it up. Please get into it. It's great. Oh man. Oh man, I'm so far behind on what he said. Vince says, or yeah, oh man, okay. The last comment here is like, Vince says, or even the basic concept of an adventuring party being an actual family. We often that's what is the term called in role playing? I know you guys know it. Anyway, it's the idea of why are the player characters together, right? It's the theme. Sometimes we have like we come up with, the entire party are members of an assassin's guild. They're black marketeers. Maybe they are pirates and they're on the ship. But something that doesn't happen too often, from my point of view, that I don't often see, are a group of player characters, um, a group of player characters who are family members. They are brothers, sisters, children, elders. My character has a strength of 6 and a constitution of 8 because they're the grandparent or great grandparent in this group. My character is, my uh, assassin rogue is the sibling of the herald paladin or something like that, and we've constantly been at odds because I break the law all the time, and they are truthful, but we support each other, and we care for each other or something like that. Dusune says, DBJ, maybe gay Roman soldiers was a cultural thing? Me in the Navy. Yeah. Yeah, the party concept. Yep. I mean, and there's nothing. Look, we're not here uh, kink shaming or anything like that. I'm just saying that role playing allows us to be what we aren't in real life, right? It's pretend. And sometimes it is wish fulfillment. Other time it could be I I wonder what people think of from a different point of view of mine. And yeah, a party theme, party concept, or party theme. Yeah, why not? Why not a family? A noble families are perfect for this. And everyone doesn't need to be blood. You could have a queen, her children, a mentor, a bodyguard, a sage, what is it in the mob? A consigliere, the legal person that handles the dealings and financial dealings and legal dealings with a wider family or something like that. Yep. Yeah, it is time check. Okay. Before, thanks, M or M squared. Yeah, a family would be interesting for groups with different levels of familiarity with the game. The more experienced players could be the parents or grandparents, and the new guys would be the kids. Hell yeah, hell yeah. And in soap operas, so every single soap opera always has the lost kid from across the tracks who no one knew about until that person comes back into their lives and knocks on the door and goes, knock, knock, knock. I have a grown kid and he was yours. And then there's all the conflicts that happen with that. I don't know you and you left me and I didn't know about you. Thanks, M. Double M's like, yeah. Now I want to see how role playing and DMing for an Oracle character would be. Yep. Yep, yep, yep. I love this idea. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for letting me allowing all of us to just squirrel ourselves, go down different pathways, and get distracted, and come up with different ideas. And of course, at the end of it, it seems like it always feels like the last 15 minutes are where all the great ideas come from, because it's like, oh, it's coalescing into something. Fuck, now we got to go. Oracle character. Hey, the day of what day's tomorrow? I don't know. Okay, let's see. Let's go through. Let me see some of my picks here. Day of grain and grape. I have day of death, day of anger, day of fear, day of corn. Let's go with the day of fear. Let's do this one. Yeah. Let's do this one. I like mixing and matching the. Nope. Let's share this. Sorry. Boop boop boop. Mm-mm. No, I want to share the window, computer. I wish I could just grab, and I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I wish I could just grab and pull this. Today's the day of squirrels. Andrew was into heavily playing out your charisma stats. So if you were a guy with an 18 charisma, you would be attracting some brotherly attention. Hells yes. Yeah, Mark Rober is the DM. Mark Rober. Yeah, the squirrel. Here's Squirrel Path 3.0. Yeah. Oh, the Sacred Bond of Thieves. Maybe we'll bring that up tomorrow. But anyway, all right, guys, tomorrow will be the day of fear. And again, this idea of the day of, if you've been here this long, you already know. The day of, using the concept of the day of is maybe, just maybe you want to try something new mechanics, new rules. You have a deep, dark, dangerous, depressing game, and you want to add some fun into it because you need a break. The day of is a good concept. Listen, it's one day, right? The next day, does this have to continue on? Nope. Maybe people forget that it even happened, right? Also, the day of can be layered on top of your game. It could be a chunk of your map off to the side. It could be layered on a major city that you have, or what have you. And it's just this is just a prompt and a concept. So if you like this kind of thing, please like, share, subscribe. Let other people know. Join in live if you can. If you can't, leave some prompts below. Get the conversation going. Like, what kind of game? Give me a couple of 1 to 3 lines of an adventure prompt, an elevator pitch on the day of love. Like, how would you start this? Would you, does here's one. A vampire lord hires the player characters, maybe doing it a little bit, hidden, unseen, to find his lost loved one who has been put into a crypt to keep their loved one immortal and would live forever. But they need to find them, and they can't because they've been alive for so long that they're even forgetting what the time used to be. And the player characters now are on a mission to find a mummified or a mummy of their loved one to reunite them with the vampire lord. Will this bring about evil or good? Who knows, right? Yeah. Foamy the squirrel. You guys are silly. Anyway, guys, I got to get out of here. You guys have a great one. I really appreciate you guys being here. Have a great one. Peace.